Over the past few years, we have been lucky enough to witness the development of such a huge range of subjects and disciplines, finding out more and filling in the blanks as we steadily answer more and more questions. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we will be taking a look at 3 recent discoveries over a range of subject areas. A melting glacier reveals a World War I shelter and artifacts in the Italian Alps. Finding leftover artifacts from the tragic days of World War I is not unusual for Europeans, but it can certainly be frightening as the most common type of findings tend to be unexploded devices in marshes. The Italian Alps are a beautiful place, but for over a century they have concealed a moment in time frozen in front of our very eyes, keeping the time of the First World Conflict halted as the world developed and advanced around it. On a fateful day in November 1918, Austrian soldiers left their mountain station on the Italian Mount Scoluzzo, only for an icy glacier to form over the cave's entrance, trapping all the items inside. The glacier is beginning to melt, and as a result, scientists have found countless pieces of memorabilia from the time of the conflict stashed away beneath the icy exterior of the cave. Archaeologists and historians were aware of the cave prior to its melting, but because of the thick ice, they could not get through it until 2017, when the ice began to melt and thinned enough to allow them to enter and explore the cave and its contents. By now, the entire excavation has been fully conducted, and archaeologists uncovered a plethora of things, from frozen food products, straw mattresses, utensils, jackets made of animal skins, and period-based newspapers. This little cave revealed in full what life was like for the soldiers in 1918, or at the very least, for those soldiers who fought upon the mountainside. Stefano Morosini stated that the artifacts are a representation, like a time machine, of the extreme conditions of life during the First World War. The group of Austrian soldiers was about 20 men in size, and they lived in the cave with an altitude of 10,151 feet in the air. Survival itself was a struggle, not to mention having to fight alongside the harsh environments. In the winter, the temperature of the Italian Alps could drop as far as -40 degrees. There is an overwhelming likelihood that the majority of the soldiers sent up to the Alps perished from hypothermia or avalanches, which can also be common during the winter, instead of passing away in actual conflict. Stefano Morosini added, soldiers had to fight against the extreme environment, fight against the snow or the avalanches, but also fight against the enemy. The fighting in the Alps is now romantically known as the White War, and has had several poems written about it, glamorizing it, especially during the early 20th century. The battle lasted for 3.5 years until the Austrian soldiers retreated from Mount Scoluzzo. Countless individuals are spread across the mountain's range. Marco Ghizzoni, one of the archaeologists who excavated the glacier cave and a worker at the Museum of the White War, said, a corpse is found every 2 or 3 years, usually in places where there was fighting on the glacier. Hikers in 2020 came across a chilling sight of a frozen corpse of a soldier, with several other individuals found in the Alps within the last few years. And yet, despite the extraordinary discovery of this time capsule, it brings with it worries of global warming. An internet solar apocalypse could happen. Dreams of apocalyptic carnage often conjure images of nuclear fallout, asteroid impact craters, war, famine, and natural disaster. But there exists an existential threat more sporadic and far less understood. The threat? Our Sun. Massive plasma bubbles are routinely boiling and popping across the surface of the Sun. These explosions are called solar flares, are visible with telescopes, and leave behind ropes of visible plasma referred to by scientists as flux ropes. Often these solar flares are accompanied by coronal mass ejections, massive bubbles of plasma which emit magnetic field lines into space for hours at a time. These coronal mass ejections influence Earth's magnetic field and geomagnetic field lines and can be observed on Earth with the naked eye as auroral light at extreme northern and southern latitudes. But these solar storms won't turn humanity into a crisp. Rather, the danger lies in the magnetized particles that the storms carry to Earth. An especially powerful coronal mass ejection could potentially knock satellites out of orbit, put international undersea cables at risk, and cause fundamental data routing systems to malfunction. But what does this all mean? Downed electrical grids, blackouts, and the death of the internet. This might seem less destructive than nuclear war, natural disaster, and famine, but the repercussions of such an event may be equally devastating. Airplanes couldn't fly, cargo ships couldn't navigate, the financial system couldn't operate, communication between nations would be almost entirely severed, and vital weapons systems would be inoperative. This is all not to mention the economic impact. It's estimated that a 24-hour internet disruption would cost $7 billion in the US alone. In short, a massive solar event has the potential to throw the entire global civilization back into the early 19th century, except that we would not have the knowledge nor the systems in place to navigate it. Imagine sitting in a dark room with your family. All the hum of white noise has been silenced, the television hangs like an empty portrait, the lights like doused torches, the meat stored in the freezer and refrigerator begins to spoil. Even the electricity that helps pump water to your house, that helps put gas in your stove, could be at risk. You drive into town for supplies, the streets are dark, the stores look closed but for the lines of cars waiting to stock up on all they can. You can't call your family to tell them what's going on. And they can't call you. The police force, the fire department, the military are all crippled. Every institution that keeps order in society has its hands tied, and no one knows how long the outage will last. No one knows how long society will keep itself in order. But is this truly a threat? How common are these cosmic events? Coronal mass ejections can occur once a week, or even 2 to 3 times a day. It all depends on where the sun is in its solar cycle. But the threat does not come from these routine events. The Carrington event occurred on September 1st, 1859. Sunspots were visible from Earth with the naked eye, and the geomagnetic storm observed with magnetographs. The power of this storm was enough to knock out sections of the newly minted US telegraph network, even starting fires. But the world did not depend on technologies vulnerable to these storms as it does now, and civilization is ill-prepared to handle such fallout. That's why scientists like Sangeetha Abdou-Jyothi from the University of California are sounding the alarm and drawing up plans of how to survive a potential internet apocalypse. For now, we can only hope that the sun remains relatively tame. Earth Minimoon 2020 SO is actually a rocket booster. Leading up to September 2020, there was news that Earth could get a new mini-moon. A mini-moon is a space rock that briefly gets pulled into Earth's orbit by gravity, but exits after a certain amount of time. Around this time, NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies was noticing that the orbit of the unidentified object was extremely similar to Earth's. Namely, that it was practically circular and on the same plane. Not only that, it was moving significantly more slowly than a space rock usually does. This, along with some of its other features, made it incredibly unique and caused some researchers to speculate that it might not be an asteroid at all, but a rocket booster instead. Specifically, one that we ourselves launched in the earliest days of space exploration. At the time, the object was referred to as 2020 SO. If it was a booster, it was launched in late 1966. This would mean it was likely a product of NASA or the Soviet Union, who were in the space race at the time. Around early December, it was finally confirmed that the object was a rocket booster that belonged to NASA's Surveyor 2. While this technically disqualifies it from being a mini-moon, it is interesting to note that this hunk of space junk survived when the lander itself didn't, crashing on the surface of the moon in 1966. On December 1st, 2020, it passed very closely to our planet at just 0.13 lunar distances, and then again on February 2nd, 2021, at just 0.58 lunar distances. As of March 2021, the object will break free of Earth's gravitational pull and orbit the Sun instead. These days we build rockets to be reusable and land back on Earth on ships at sea. But believe it or not, there are quite a few rockets from that time period that were lost. Because of its hollowness, pressure created by the solar radiation pushed it off course and changed its trajectory. It turns out that it has actually passed Earth a few times, completely unnoticed. But for now, it's time to wave goodbye to the rocket booster. Until next time. But what do you make of these recent discoveries? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.